Hi guys, welcome back to Nerd Chic Bookworm. I'm Alice and today I'm going to be doing a May and June reading wrap up. In the last 2 months I have read 11 books, maybe 12, and I just thought I would sort of put them together and have sort of a wrap up of everything that I've read because there is quite a lot, so I thought it was a big enough amount that I could do a proper video for you all. So starting right back in May, the first book that I read is one that I actually don't have with me right now, and that's called The Tattoo Thief, and that's by Alison Belsham. This is a sort of police procedural thriller sort of book about a young woman called Marnie, who is a tattoo artist in Brighton, and she is at a tattooing convention over the sort of, I think it's set in like the May sort of spring half term bank holiday sort of time. And she's at this tattoo convention and she goes out for a break, has a cup of coffee, goes to put a coffee in the bin when she's finished, and she stumbles across a dead body that has been stuffed in the bin. And then obviously the police get involved, and the sort of the main person on this police force who's kind of taking care of this murder is a newly promoted man called Francis Sullivan, and he tracks Marnie down and they sort of unofficially work together to figure out who is doing these killings. And it's basically the serial killer is someone who is flaying people alive to steal their tattoos off their body, and it sort of all focuses around tattoos, tattoo artistry, bloodlust. You know, you see things from the serial killer's point throughout the book, and he is seeing it as sort of what he's doing, murdering these people and flaying them alive to steal their skin, and he turns them into leather, which is, it's pretty gruesome to say the least. If you don't like gruesome books, this is not one for you, I tell you that. And he has this real sort of bloodlust, and you can really tell. It's an awesome book, I have to say. It's a really, really good book if you like gory police procedurals and murder mysteries and kind of figuring out who done it. It is a really, really good one. I've never read one sort of with this premise of tattoos and flaying skin and stuff like that, and I did really enjoy it, but it is very gory, and the twist at the end was really unexpected. It was something that I didn't expect at all, so that really sort of made me enjoy it more by the sheer fact that it was just so unexpected. But I would definitely say that it's a brilliant book, but if you don't like blood and gore, then this is probably one for you to stay away from, because it is pretty gruesome and pretty gory, but it is really good if you like that stuff. The next book that I read was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Now, I don't feel like I need to go too much into this book because I'm assuming that everybody sort of knows the premise of The Handmaid's Tale, but this is written in first person from the point of view of Offred, who is this woman here, and basically it's set in sort of a near future where America has been overtaken by these sort of Christian fundamentalists, and fertile women throughout America have been captured and they have been taken to this place known as Gilead, and they're pretty much made to be wombs on legs. They are there to produce children for the rich and powerful people of Gilead, and that is basically what they are. They are basically just vessels for making babies. And it's following Offred, and it's following her through her time at Gilead, but it also kind of takes you back into the past. So you sort of see how things happened and how sort of Gilead came to be and sort of how it all sort of started, but it's all just following this one woman called Offred. You do hear from a few other characters, but it is mainly from Offred's point of view. I didn't particularly like this book. I read this because I have a lot of dystopian fiction that I want to get to, and a lot of them on the blurb have said it is sort of a new era Handmaid's Tale book. So I thought I've got to give Handmaid's Tale a read so I kind of know what these other books are sort of, you know, the basis of these other books is based on. So I read this and I just really didn't enjoy it. I thought I didn't like the writing style of Margaret Atwood. I found that, I don't know, I can't put it into words really. I found it quite confusing. Maybe I'm just not smart enough for Margaret Atwood, but I found it quite difficult to get into. And at one point, sort of in the first half of the book, about 3 times, I was like, I'm just going to put this down. I think it's absolutely rubbish. But as I got to the sort of second half of the book, it did start to get better and I did enjoy it a little bit more. Not as much as I thought I would, but I did enjoy it. So I ended up giving this 2.5 stars on my Goodreads. It wasn't the greatest book, but I can see why people do like it. It is sort of one of the original dystopian novels, and I am glad that I've read it because of that, but it's not something that I would run out and rave about. So it was a bit of a disappointment for me, but I've read it and I'm happy that I've read it. The next book that I read was Elizabeth is Missing. Now, I'm not going to go too much into this because I actually did a video solely based on a review for this. So if you just search in the rest of my videos, it'll be there. And that's just a full in-depth book review on this book. But it was a really good book. I gave it 4.5 stars on Goodreads. It was lovely. It was beautiful. It was entrancing, it was magical, it was sad, it was heartbreaking, but it was one of my favourite books and I really did enjoy it. The next 3 books are real disappointments. I don't even know why I carried on reading them. These are the first 3 books of the Disney Twisted Tales series. So I read Fairest of Them All, which is about the evil queen in Snow White. I then read The Beast Within, which is looking at the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. And then I read Poor Unfortunate Soul, which is looking at Ursula from The Little Mermaid. And these are all written by Serena Valentino. These books were so disappointing. I thought they were crap. All 3 of them, rubbish. The first one, which is Fairest of Them All, which is this one here, which was about the evil queen, I gave this one 3.5 stars. This one is definitely the best out of all of them. They all follow on from each other, so there is a series and there is a sequence to reading them, this being the first one. And I read this and I did enjoy it. I'm not going to lie, it was rubbish, but it was the better side of rubbish. So this is basically following the evil queen out of Snow White, but I really enjoyed the fact that this one was looking at her mental health and her mental state, and Serena Valentino really went in depth with her mental state, and I think that's why I enjoyed this book a lot more than the other ones. The Beast Within I gave 1 star, and this book was just domestic violence, emotional violence. It was just horrible to read. It made me feel uncomfortable. It just was lacking in character development. It was lacking in pretty much everything that makes a good story. And then the third one was Poor Unfortunate Soul, and again I gave this 1 star. This is following Ursula from The Little Mermaid, and again there was just no real character development. When we started to think, oh, there could be something happening here, Serena Valentino just kind of went off somewhere else, and it was very bitty and very sort of pieced together, and I didn't like that. I wanted more of a story and an overarching sort of arc to Ursula, and how her psyche was and why she did the things that she did. And you know, Ariel is mentioned a little bit in here, because these are based on the Disney films rather than the actual stories written. These are based on the Disney films. So Ariel is mentioned in Triton, but it's just, I think they're just not for me. I've got the other 3 in the series, but I haven't read them yet, and I probably won't, to be honest, because I think if I didn't enjoy these 3, I don't think I'm going to waste any more time on them. I mean, they are quick reads. I mean, the writing, you know, it's quite big writing, and it takes up, you know, not very much of the page. So they were very quick reads, but you know, I've got so many books that I want to read. I don't know if I'm going to waste any more time on books that I'm just not really interested in. So, a bit of a disappointment. I did really want to like these, but unfortunately, I just didn't. The next one, however, was really, really, really good. I gave this 4.5 stars. And this is The President is Missing by Bill Clinton and James Patterson. This is about a fictional president of the United States called President Duncan, and he gets this sort of message from his daughter to say that basically there is an imminent attack, and he has to sort of go undercover and meet with these terrorists and try and come to some kind of agreement to stop the world from going into catastrophe, basically. I really, really enjoyed this book. This is what you would call a political action thriller, and it is a really, really good book. This is basically looking at what would happen if there was a cyber attack, and what would happen to a world that was pretty much completely dependent on technology, and sort of how that would affect the world. And I really like the premise of this. It's basically, you know, it's looking at the fact that nowadays in the modern world, everything that we do is technology in some way. So answering a telephone is technological, you know, using a computer, obviously technology. Driving a car nowadays is even, you know, technology. And it's kind of looking at all of these things and how if one attack can wipe out all technology, what that would do to the world. And I really enjoyed this. This President Duncan, he goes undercover and he kind of disappears, hence the title, The President is Missing. He kind of disappears, and he has to kind of work with everybody to try and stop this imminent attack. However, as the story's unfolding, he realizes that one of the people in his immediate sort of cabinet of people who he works with, one of them is a traitor. And it's looking at the inner workings of a government, and it's looking at how, you know, presidency is, you know, how a president runs things, and how the people around him are fundamental in making things happen, and what you need to do and how you need to act when somebody can't be trusted within that sort of network of people. This is an amazing book. I read this book in I think 2 or 3 days. It is so fast paced. It is so brilliantly written. It's the first James Patterson book that I've ever read, and it definitely won't be the last. I really, really enjoyed this book. It's one of those books that, even if you don't know much about politics, which I don't, you can still really get into it. It's very, very thrilling. It's very gripping. Like I said, it's very, very fast paced. It's interesting. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of sort of wondering who's doing it, what's it about, why is this happening. It makes you look at technology in the world now, and if that is necessarily a good thing or if it is a bad thing. It's just a really, really good book, and I think with Bill Clinton being part of it, as he is obviously a previous president of the United States, he is really given a lot of insight to really behind the scenes of what it is like, and I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it was really, really good. I didn't give it 5 stars solely because of the fact of the sort of the political jargon. If there wasn't so much of that, it definitely would have been a 5-star read for me, but I am just so stupid when it comes to political things that I had to knock it down half-star just because I just couldn't understand most of what they were saying when it came to the political stuff. But this is a really, really good book. It's my first James Patterson, but it definitely won't be my last. I really, really enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it. The next one that I read was just a tiny little book, and this is one of the vintage minis that have been brought out, and this is Depression by William Styron, and this is basically the full unabridged text of Darkness Visible, which William Styron wrote. I'm not too sure when he wrote it. I wonder if it says 1990 he actually wrote this, Darkness Visible, and then it got put into this book in 2017. So like I said, it's just a tiny little edition, and it was beautiful. I gave this book 3.5 stars. This is basically looking at William Styron as he sort of realised that he had depression, and it's just following him and his decline of his mental state, and how he ended up writing a suicide note and thinking that he was going to end it. And it's just sort of following that time in his life. It was really thought-provoking. It was really lovely. It was beautifully written. There was descriptions that were so visceral, and it really struck a chord with me. I really enjoyed this, just as like a little read. I think I read it in about an hour, and it's very poetic, it's very lovely, but it's also very dark and harrowing. As someone who suffers from depression herself, it did hit a nerve, but I can understand understand why people should read it, especially people who have depression, because it makes you feel like you're not alone. And once I'd read it, I definitely felt like I wasn't alone, so I would definitely give this a read. Whether you've got depression or not, I would say give it a read. It's just a lovely, cute little book, and you know, it is worth the time and effort to read it. The next book is my favourite book ever. I have spoke about this before on previous videos. This is Black Summer by M.W. Craven. This I finished not that long ago and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It's my second M.W. Craven book that I have read, which I have given 5 stars. This is about a man called Jared Keating, who is a chef, and he is this sort of bigwig chef. He owns Michelin-starred restaurants in Cumbria, and he is basically a psychopath. And he has been in jail for the murder of his daughter. And Washington Poe, who is the sort of the detective who is the man throughout these series. This is the second book in the Washington Poe series, and he's the sort of detective of this Cumbrian police force. And it was sort of his testimony that ultimately put this chef in prison for the murder of his daughter. And then one day, some young woman comes to a sort of local village police station and claims that she is this dead daughter of Jared Keating, and she's alive and well, and you know, she's fine. And it's just following that and sort of how she can be alive, and how, you know, everybody thought she was dead, and then she just stumbles into this place like nothing's ever happened to her. And it's following that, and it is so interesting. It is full of twists and turns. This was on my 5-star prediction book video that I did a few weeks ago, and spoiler, I gave it 5 stars. This is the second Washington Poe book that I've given 5 stars. It is brilliant. It is so full of twists and turns. At one point I thought I knew where this book was going, and then it spun me off in a completely different direction, and I was hooked from the first page pretty much. It's such a good book. The 2 main characters are Washington Poe and a woman called Tilly, who is sort of this real tech whiz who is so smart, and she kind of, it's a really nice relationship between Washington Poe and Tilly, because they have this sort of, you know, they sort of balance each other out, and it's a really nice friendship that's kind of blossomed between them over the past 2 books. But this is lovely. Like the relationship between them is really shown more in this book, and sort of that is lovely. It's quite gory, it's quite gruesome. Again, it's quite sort of like, ooh, you know, if you don't like gory books, this probably isn't for you. I love gory books, so you know, hey ho, these are probably my favourite series of books that I've ever read, ever. And this is an author who lives local to me, so it's really interesting for me to read these books as well, because of the places that he talks about I know a lot about, and I've visited them myself. So that, I think that does kind of add to my enjoyment a lot more. But I would definitely recommend it. It's twisty, it's gripping, it's thrilling, it is fast paced, it's gory, it's gruesome, it's a little bit fucked up, but it is a really, really good police procedural and thriller. The next book that I read was a book that I got for my birthday. I mentioned this a little bit on my birthday book haul video that I did last week. And this is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. This is about a 15-year-old boy called Christopher Boone, and he has Asperger's syndrome. And at the beginning of this novel, he is outside and he comes across his neighbour's dog who has been killed, and he takes it upon himself to sort of unravel this mystery of what happened to this dog and how this dog got killed. And as he is trying to find clues and, you know, explanations for what happened to this dog, he happens to just stumble across things about his own life that he's been shielded from for as long as he can remember. And it's about family secrets, it's about sort of whether keeping people from the truth is really a good thing. It's about marriage, it's about friendship, it's about trusting people, and it's just a really lovely book. It's interesting, it's intriguing. It's a book with a narrative that I've never read before, as it is from the point of view of Christopher Boone, and it's written as he would speak with Asperger's syndrome. So it's very sort of bitty, it's very piecey in places. The sections where there's pictures and diagrams, he is obsessed with maths and plans and you know, graphs and sort of planning things that way. So throughout there's pictures and maps, like things like this, you know, there's like little maps that he's drawn, and there's he goes to visit a zoo with his dad one day, and that's the map of the zoo that he's drawn from memory. And then there's pictures of, and then there's like maths equations and stuff. I don't know if you can see that, but there's big long algebraic maths equations and stuff, and all of that I didn't understand. I kind of, you know, brushed through that a little bit. And each of the chapter numbers are numbers of I think it's prime numbers. So you start off with chapter 2, then chapter 3, then chapter 5, then chapter 7, then chapter 11, and then 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31, etc. So you end up, the final chapter is chapter number, let me try and find it at the back, is chapter number 233, because that's the way that they're all set out. This is a lovely book. It's a beautiful book. It is, I didn't realise that it was a book that was written so long ago. It was written in 2003 it was written. I didn't realise it was written that long ago. But it is definitely a brilliant book. I would definitely recommend it, and I gave it 3.5 stars. It wasn't a perfect book, but it is definitely one that I would recommend to people, and it was just a fun little book with a really interesting narrative. The next one, this is the second last one, this is The Wicker King. I only finished this last week, and I had heard amazing things about this book. I again got this book for my birthday, and this is on my birthday book haul video from last week, and I got this for my birthday and I read it last week, I think. It only took me a few days. It was, to me, not great. And I hate that I have to say that, because so many people and so many other booktubers who have read this, and so many people on Goodreads have given this like 5-star reviews, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. I just thought there was something there about it that just wasn't good, and I just wasn't connecting with it. I didn't connect to the characters. I didn't particularly like the way the book was set out. It was very bitty. It was very sort of pieced together. It was, you know, each page was a chapter, if you can call it that. I enjoyed reading about their decline together. It's basically about 2 boys called August and Jack, and this is from Jack's perspective? I can't remember. No, sorry, this is August's perspective of what's happening to Jack. That was it. So basically it's about these 2 boys, August and Jack, and this is following August, who is sort of a misfit in his school, and he is a pyromaniac, which means that he sets fires. And then there's Jack, who is this sort of golden boy varsity rugby player, and throughout the book he sort of and have this really, really intense friendship. And then throughout the book, Jack starts seeing things that aren't there. He starts getting really vivid hallucinations, and it's kind of he's getting these hallucinations of a thing called the Wicker King, which is a game that Jack and August used to play when they were younger. And he basically thinks that August is this Wicker King who has to do these certain things to save the world, basically. And they have such a codependent relationship that even if what Jack is visualizing and hallucinating, even if that is something really dangerous or something, you know, that is scary or could potentially lead to harm or, you know, criminal things from arising, August just sort of goes along with it. And they're so codependent, and it's following their relationship and their friendship, and it sort of blossoms into something, you know, it kind of bubbles under the surface just throughout this book. But just something about it I just couldn't connect with. And as I was reading it, I was a bit sort of I just kind of wanted it to end, you know. There wasn't really, it's a very sort of slow book. There's not much happening. It's not very like plot driven. It is very, very character focused, this book. So if you like sort of fast paced action books, this will not be for you. It is very slow. It is very focused on characters and how the characters are developing, and it's looking at sort of their mental decline and their friendship and their codependent friendship, which is not healthy at all. And it's kind of where they end up and how they rebuild themselves after what's happened to them. I did enjoy aspects of this book. It wasn't all bad. Like I said, I gave it 2 stars, so it wasn't awful. It definitely wasn't the best book that I've read, but there was aspects of it that I did like, and I know people out there would absolutely love this book. I just think the way it was set out and the way it was formatted just wasn't for me, and I think the characters together, like I said, there wasn't much of a development between them. It started off as like, this is Jack, this is August, and then this is their decline, and there wasn't much else going on. So for me, I found it a little bit boring. I wanted a little bit more from the book. I thought there was going to be more from it, and unfortunately there wasn't. You know, that is just my taste. I know a lot of people would absolutely love this book and rave about it and give it 5 stars on Goodreads. And, you know, I was on Goodreads looking at the reviews before I did this video, and there is a lot of 5-star reviews. So obviously there is something really, really good that a lot of people like. It just wasn't for me, and that's okay, you know. You don't have to love every single book that you read. And now the last book is a short little novella called Spectrum by Kay Cadinger. This is another book that you probably saw on my birthday book haul last week. This is a short little novella about a girl called Sam who has got synesthesia. So she can basically hear and feel emotions through colour. In the back of this book, it's actually got a colour key, so it tells you what each of the colours that she talks about means. So if she sees something yellow, it means that it's something curious. If she sees something that's red, it means it's deception or there's something wrong. If she sees something orange in somebody, then it's sort of an act of rebellion. They've got a bit of rebellious streak in them. And then it's just kind of following her. She has got a young child called Tate, who is 5. It starts off where he's 2, but then for most of the rest of the novella he's 5. And it's basically a love story between this girl called Sam and this boy who's called Ben, and they meet and they fall in love, but there's a lot of sort of mixed feelings and hidden emotions, and she's had quite a traumatic past, and Tate's father, called Jared, I think he was killed in a car accident before Tate was born. So she still has this sort of love for him that she's never got over. And then Ben comes into her life and he falls madly in love with her, and she sees all these colours in him, and she wants to love him, but something's holding her back. And then there's this weird sort of situation that happens where he says that he wants her to basically go and sleep with somebody else to just get out of his system before they sort of move in together and make everything else official. And she says that he sort of gives her a choice of who would be sort of her hall pass, as you will. And she says this lead singer of her favourite band, and the lead singer's called Hugo, and it's the River Rats, I think the band's called. And then you know, just by happenstance they go to this sort of weekend retreat at this sort of bed and breakfast, and there's a wedding going on, and it's a wedding with a really rich family, and the dad of this dad of the bride has brought in loads of celebrity acts to play during this big wedding, and one of them just happens to be Hugo from the Riverats, and the Riverats are playing, and they just kind of happen to be at the same place at the same time, and Hugo falls for her, and the way she talks to him about music, he sort of falls for it, and she becomes sort of Hugo's muse, and it's a bit cheesy, and it's a bit like, oh my god. I mean, it's a very short book. I think it's 91 pages, so I read this in like half an hour. It is a very short book, but there was bits that I liked. It's beautifully written, like the prose and the language and the sort of atmosphere around the words is absolutely beautiful. I can't fault that at all. But the story, just, there's so many plot holes, and you just kind of think, how the hell did we go from that to that in like 5 pages? And then at the end there's this twist involving Ben that's just a little bit like, oh, how the hell did that come about? You know, it kind of just totally comes out of nowhere, and it's a bit sort of like, what the hell? But it's a beautifully written book. I'm not saying that it's not, and it's lyrical, and the way she describes her synesthesia and her medical condition, and the way she speaks about her son, and the way she speaks about her son's father who was killed, and the love that she has for him still, and all of that is really, really beautiful. It's just the plot was very sort of, I don't know, very confusing, very strange, but a lovely story, just with a lot of flaws. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars, and it was a brilliant book. So yeah, this was a book that I would recommend to people if they just want sort of a little read. Good book, but not the best. Unfortunately, quite a lot of these books haven't been the best. I've had a bit of a up and down reading couple of months. I've just happened to choose books that haven't been amazing or spectacular. But yeah, they're the books I've got. At the minute I'm reading a book called Ragdoll, which is another police procedural, and that I think that's probably going to be another 5-star book. So yeah, I'm going to be back with sort of a bonus video on either Tuesday or Wednesday this week. I've got something up my sleeve for the end of June and sort of the last day of June to do with books and reading. So I am looking forward to doing that and giving you a little bonus video before July begins. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions or any comments, or if you've read any of the books that I've been speaking about today and you want to talk with me about them, please leave a comment in the comment section below and I will happily talk to you about it. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up or hit the subscription button and the bell to get notifications of every time that I put a new video up. Okay, see you next time. Bye guys.